January 7, 2026, 11:34 a.m. Gulf of Aden. A commercial cargo ship named Pacific Dawn transmits emergency distress signal. Mayday, Mayday. Under pirate attack. 6 speedboats. Approximately 30 armed men. Boarding in progress. Crew barricaded. Need immediate assistance. The signal reaches USS Carney, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer 40 miles away. Within 3 minutes, an MH-60 Seahawk helicopter launches from the Carney's flight deck. 4 crew members, 2 pilots, 1 rescue swimmer, 1 door gunner manning a .50 caliber machine gun. They have 20 minutes to reach a ship under active pirate assault, 20 minutes to prevent massacre, 20 minutes to attempt rescue that will require hovering 40 feet above hostile deck while pirates shoot at them with automatic weapons. What happens in the next 18 minutes will become one of the most dangerous helicopter operations in modern naval history. 8 pirates will die. 14 bullets will hit the helicopter. 18 hostages will be saved. And what the crew discovers on that deck will reveal why these pirates were so desperate, why they fought instead of fleeing, and why the rescue had to happen immediately or not at all. The numbers seem impossible. 1 helicopter against 30 pirates, 4 crew members against armed assault force, hovering aircraft against AK-47s and RPGs. No cover, no armor, no backup, just training and courage and .50 caliber machine gun against desperate men who'd rather die fighting than surrender. The mission should have been suicide. The helicopter should have been shot down. The crew should have been killed, but they weren't. Because sometimes desperation meets greater determination. Sometimes numbers lose to training. Sometimes pirates learn that attacking commercial shipping in the Gulf of Aden brings consequences delivered by US Navy helicopter crews willing to risk everything. But this isn't a story about a successful rescue. It's about what the pirates were protecting, and why they chose death over retreat, and what that reveals about modern piracy in East African waters. The MH-60 Seahawk is designed for anti-submarine warfare, for search and rescue, for utility transport, not for close air support against hostile forces on ships. The door gun is defensive weapon, for protection during insertion and extraction, not for sustained combat engagement. But doctrine and reality don't always align. Sometimes helicopter crews improvise, adapt, use available tools for necessary missions. And on January 7th, that meant using door gun as offensive weapon, meant hovering low enough for gunner to engage targets, meant exposing helicopter to enemy fire, meant accepting risk because alternative was worse. Lieutenant Jake Morrison piloted the Seahawk, 10 years Navy, 6 years flying helicopters, dozens of anti-piracy patrols. He'd seen pirate attacks before. Usually they scattered when military arrived, fled in speedboats, abandoned attempted hijackings, chose escape over confrontation. Smart pirates survived by avoiding combat with professional military. But the distress call from Pacific Dawn suggested these pirates were different. Boarding in progress. Crew barricaded. That meant pirates had committed, had taken control, had hostages, or soon would. That meant they might fight rather than flee, might see helicopter as threat to eliminate rather than force to avoid. Stay with me, because what Morrison sees when he arrives changes everything about this rescue, changes the plan, changes the risk, changes what has to happen in the next 12 minutes. At 11:52 a.m., 18 minutes after distress call, the Seahawk arrived on station. Morrison circled the Pacific Dawn at 500 feet, assessing, planning. What he saw was worse than expected. 6 speedboats tied to the ship's hull. Pirates on deck. At least 20 visible. Armed with AK-47s. Some with RPG launchers. The crew was nowhere visible, either barricaded below decks or already captured. The pirates weren't fleeing, weren't preparing to abandon ship. They were securing it, taking control. This wasn't interrupted hijacking. This was successful seizure. And pirates who'd successfully taken a ship don't surrender easily. Morrison radioed the Carney. Carney, Seahawk 1. Pirates have control of vessel. Approximately 20 hostiles visible on deck, armed with automatic weapons and RPGs. Crew not visible. Recommend we make low pass to draw attention. See if pirates flee or fight. Then decide on engagement. The Carney's response was immediate. Seahawk 1, you are cleared to engage if necessary to protect crew. Rules of engagement authorize defensive fire. Use your judgment. Destroyer is en route. ETA 12 minutes. You have 12 minutes to secure the situation or force pirates off the ship. 12 minutes. Morrison looked at his crew. Door gunner, petty officer, 2nd class Marcus Webb had his hands on the .50 caliber. Ready. Experienced. He'd fired at pirates before. Warning shots. Suppressive fire. Never direct engagement at this range. This would be different. This would be close. Personal. Deadly. Morrison keyed internal comms. Webb, you understand the situation. We're going low. You may have to engage. Are you ready for this? Webb's response was calm. Professional. Sir, I'm ready. Let's get those people off that ship. At 11:54 a.m., Morrison brought the Seahawk down. Not a pass. A hover. 40 feet above the deck. Close enough for Webb to engage individual targets. Close enough for pirates to shoot back effectively. Close enough to be vulnerable. Exposed. But close enough to make a difference. To suppress. To kill if necessary. To save the crew below decks. The pirates' response was immediate. They opened fire. AK-47s. Dozens of them. Rounds cracking past the helicopter. Some hitting. Metallic pings. Impacts on fuselage. On rotors. The aircraft shook. Morrison fought to maintain position. To keep hovering. To give Webb clear shot. The noise was deafening. Helicopter engine. Rotor wash. Gunfire from below. The smell of gunpowder and aviation fuel. The fear that next round would hit something critical. Hydraulics. Engine. Controls. The fear that hovering made them target. That staying exposed meant dying. But also the knowledge that leaving meant those crew members died. That abandoning them wasn't option. That risk was necessary. That someone had to stay. Had to fight. Had to win. Webb opened fire. The .50 caliber machine gun hammered. Each round like thunder. Each impact devastating. He aimed at pirates with weapons. At threats. At men shooting at the helicopter. The range was close. 40 feet. Point blank for .50 caliber. The rounds tore through human targets. Dropped pirates instantly. The deck became chaos. Some pirates diving for cover. Some continuing to fire. Some trying to reach their speedboats. To escape. The psychological effect was overwhelming. Being fired upon from above. With no cover. No escape. No defense. Just helicopter hovering and gun firing and men dying. At 11:56 a.m., 2 minutes into engagement, the first pirate raised his hands, surrendered, dropped his weapon. Others saw. Some followed, threw down AK-47s, raised arms. Others kept fighting, desperate, defiant, or knowing surrender meant prison, knowing capture meant life in custody, choosing death over arrest. Webb continued engaging. Selective fire, targeting those still fighting, those still threatening, those who chose combat over surrender. At 11:58 a.m., 4 minutes into engagement, Webb's gun jammed. Malfunction. The worst possible moment. The helicopter was still taking fire. Pirates were still fighting, and the gun was dead. Webb worked frantically, cleared the jam, rechambered, resumed fire. The jam lasted 20 seconds. 20 seconds where Morrison kept hovering with no defensive fire. 20 seconds of exposure, of vulnerability, of pirates concentrating fire on helicopter that couldn't shoot back. 3 more rounds hit during those 20 seconds. One passed through cockpit canopy, missed Morrison by inches. He felt the shockwave, saw the hole appear, knew how close death had come, kept hovering anyway, because crew was still below, because mission wasn't complete, because leaving meant those people died. At 12 p.m., 6 minutes into engagement, 8 pirates were dead. 6 had surrendered. The rest had fled to their speedboats, started engines, trying to escape. But the Carney was arriving. The destroyer appeared on horizon, moving fast. The pirates saw it, knew they couldn't outrun destroyer, knew speedboats couldn't escape. Some abandoned boats, jumped into water, swimming toward shore, futile, miles from land. Others stayed in boats, trying anyway, hoping, desperate. Morrison radioed the Carney. Carney, Seahawk 1, 8 pirates KIA, 6 captured, 12 fleeing in speedboats. Request destroyer engage fleeing boats. Helicopter is damaged, but operational. Returning to assess crew status. He brought the Seahawk away from the ship, gained altitude, circled. Let the destroyer handle the pursuing pirates. Let his crew breathe. Let them process what just happened. 6 minutes of sustained combat. 14 bullet holes in the helicopter. Everyone alive. Mission successful, but not over. Still had to confirm crew safety. Still had to secure the ship. Still had to count costs and assess damage and ensure everyone survived. The Carney's 5-inch gun engaged the fleeing speedboats. Precise fire. Controlled. 3 boats were hit. Destroyed. The others stopped. Surrendered. 12 pirates captured from the water. The boarding team from the Carney secured the Pacific Dawn, found the crew, 18 people, locked in engine room, barricaded behind steel doors, terrified but alive, unharmed. They'd heard the firefight above, heard the helicopter, heard the .50 caliber, knew someone was fighting for them, didn't know if rescue would succeed, didn't know if they'd survive, just waited, hoped, prayed, and survived. At 12:47 p.m., 1 hour 13 minutes after distress call, the Pacific Dawn was secure. Crew safe. Pirates dead or captured. Ship intact. Cargo undamaged. The helicopter landed on the Carney. The crew climbed out. Inspected damage. 14 bullet holes. 1 through canopy. 3 through tail section. 10 through fuselage. Anyone could have been fatal. Anyone could have hit hydraulics or controls or fuel lines or crew. But none did. Luck and armor and engineering kept the helicopter flying, kept the crew alive, kept the mission successful. But here's what nobody understood until the captured pirates talked. Here's why they fought instead of fleeing. Here's what made this hijacking different from hundreds of others. Here's what the rescue prevented, and why timing was everything. The captured pirates were interrogated on the Carney. Professional, legal, by the book. Some refused to talk, accepted their fate. Others provided information, explained. revealed. The Pacific Dawn wasn't random target, wasn't opportunistic hijacking. It was contracted hit. The pirates had been paid specifically to seize this ship, paid to hold it for 24 hours, paid to ensure cargo didn't reach destination. The cargo was humanitarian aid, food, medicine, water purification equipment, destined for Yemen, for refugee camps, for people suffering in civil war. But someone didn't want that aid to arrive. Someone with interest in continued suffering. Someone who profited from instability. Someone who paid pirates $200,000 to delay the ship, to create pretext for seizing cargo, to prevent aid from reaching those who needed it. The pirates weren't after ransom, weren't planning to negotiate, were paid to hold the ship until their employer's agents arrived, paid to prevent humanitarian assistance, paid to contribute to human suffering for profit. That's why they fought instead of fleeing, because fleeing meant failing their contract, meant not getting paid, meant facing employers' wrath. Death by US Navy helicopter was preferable to failing the people who'd hired them. The pirates who fought knew they were dead either way, chose to die fighting rather than die as failures, chose American bullets over employers' revenge. That was the desperation Morrison had sensed, the desperation that made them stand and fight against overwhelming force. Not courage, not commitment to piracy, just fear of consequences greater than death in combat. The investigation traced the money, the payment to pirates, found accounts, shell companies, front organizations, traced back to warlord in Yemen, man who controlled black market, who profited from suffering, who sold food and medicine at inflated prices to desperate people. Humanitarian aid threatened his monopoly, threatened his profit, so he hired pirates to prevent it, paid them to seize the ship, to delay the aid, to create crisis he could exploit. The Pacific Dawn wasn't piracy target. It was business obstruction, economic warfare disguised as hijacking. The revelation changed everything, changed how the attack was prosecuted, changed how the rescue was viewed, changed Morrison's understanding of what he'd prevented. He'd thought he was saving cargo ship from pirates, standard anti-piracy operation, routine rescue with unusual tactics. But he'd actually disrupted humanitarian crisis for profit, prevented warlord from starving refugees, ensured aid reached those who needed it. The 18 crew members he saved were secondary. Important, but secondary. The real rescue was the thousands in Yemen who received food and medicine because the ship wasn't delayed, because pirates were stopped, because helicopter crew risked everything in 6 minutes of combat. Morrison received Navy Cross, second highest military decoration, for extraordinary heroism, for hovering exposed for 6 minutes, for maintaining position while taking fire, for enabling gunner to engage, for saving crew and cargo and ultimately thousands who depended on that humanitarian aid. Webb received Silver Star for his actions on the gun, for engaging effectively under fire, for continuing after jam, for eliminating 8 threats and forcing others to surrender or flee. The other crew members received medals. Everyone recognized, everyone honored, because everyone contributed to success that saved more lives than anyone initially understood. The Pacific Dawn delivered its cargo to Yemen, 1 day late, otherwise intact. The food was distributed. The medicine reached clinics. The water purification equipment went to camps. Thousands of people received aid they desperately needed. Because helicopter crew spent 6 minutes hovering 40 feet above hostile deck. Because they took risks. Because they stayed when leaving was safer. Because mission success mattered more than personal safety. That's naval aviation at its finest. That's what helicopters crews do. Risk everything to save everyone. Even when everyone is more people than they know. Even when success prevents suffering they'll never see. Even when heroism is rewarded, but its full impact remains invisible to those who performed it. The 14 bullet holes in the Seahawk were preserved. The aircraft was retired to museum, exhibited with full story, every hole marked, every impact explained, visual testament to what helicopter crews face, what they endure, what they risk. Visitors see the holes and understand. Understand that 6 minutes of hovering meant 14 opportunities for death, meant 14 rounds that could have killed, meant 14 moments of luck and armor and engineering, meant survival against odds that should have killed them. The crew never forgot those 6 minutes. Morrison still flies helicopters, still conducts anti-piracy patrols. But every mission he remembers January 7th, remembers the round through his canopy, remembers hovering while taking fire, remembers choosing to stay when leaving made sense. He doesn't talk about heroism, doesn't claim courage, just says he did his job, just says the crew needed saving, just says someone had to stay. That's true military humility, deflecting credit, minimizing danger, just mission, just duty, just doing what had to be done. Webb transferred to another squadron after the incident. Still serves as door gunner, still flies over Gulf of Aden, but he carries the weight of 8 lives taken, 8 pirates killed from 40 feet. He doesn't celebrate those kills, doesn't boast about accuracy, just acknowledges necessity. Those 8 men were trying to kill him, trying to kill his crew, trying to prevent rescue. He eliminated threats, did his job, saved lives by taking others. That's the burden of combat. That's the weight door gunners carry. Lives saved require lives taken. Success requires violence. Victory demands casualties. Webb understands that, lives with it, continues serving despite it. Because mission matters more than comfort. Because saving lives justifies taking them when necessary. Because sometimes there's no choice, just trigger, just targets, just survival and success measured in bodies and bullets and people saved. The Pacific Dawn's crew never forgot either. 18 people locked in engine room, hearing firefight above, hearing helicopter, hearing their salvation fighting for them, not knowing if rescue would succeed, not knowing if they'd survive, just waiting, hoping, some praying, some crying, all terrified. Then silence, then American voices. US, Navy, you're safe. It's over. Those words they'll never forget. That moment fear became relief. Terror became joy. Certain death became miraculous survival. They'd been hours from being hostages, from being bargaining chips, from being casualties if ransom negotiations failed. The pirates had been waiting for their employers' agents, had been planning to transfer the crew, to hide them, to use them as leverage. The helicopter's arrival ended that plan. 6 minutes of combat prevented weeks or months of captivity, prevented torture, prevented death, prevented suffering beyond imagination. The 18 crew members wrote letters to Morrison, to Webb, to the entire helicopter crew, thanking them, explaining what the rescue meant, describing the terror, the helplessness, the despair. Then the sound of helicopter, the sound of beat at 50 caliber, the sound of fighting, the sound of hope. They'd heard everything through the steel walls, heard pirates shouting, heard gunfire, heard screams, heard engines starting, heard silence, then American voices, then safety, then life. Those letters hang in the squadron ready room, framed, displayed. Reminder of why helicopter crews train, why they practice, why they accept risk. Because those 18 people lived. Because their families got them back. Because letters exist thanking men who risked everything for strangers. That's naval aviation purpose. That's helicopter crew mission. Save everyone possible. Risk everything necessary. Succeed when failure means death for innocent people. The letters prove it worked. Prove the risk was worth it. Prove that 14 bullet holes in helicopter are acceptable cost for 18 lives saved. The Yemeni refugees who received the aid never knew about January 7th. Never knew pirates seized their food. Never knew American helicopter crew fought to save it. Never knew 8 pirates died and 14 bullets hit aircraft so they could eat. Never knew humanitarian aid required military action. Never knew their survival depended on 6 minutes of combat 40 feet above a deck in Gulf of Aden. They just received food, medicine, water, survived another day, another week, another month, because someone fought, because someone stayed, because someone risked. They'll never know. Don't need to know. Just need to live. That's enough. That's everything. That's what makes the heroism real. Not glory, not recognition. Just anonymous people living because of anonymous violence they'll never witness. That's military service at its purest. Save lives that never know they were saved. Prevent suffering that never knows it was prevented. Succeed invisibly. Triumph anonymously. That's what January 7th represents. The warlord in Yemen who hired the pirates was never prosecuted. No jurisdiction. No evidence linking him directly. Just financial trails that end at shell companies. Just captured pirates who claim they don't know who hired them. Just